UK, around 3,400 people die each year in road accidents. That means there's a 1 in 200 chance that any one of us will die in the same way. Life is full of such risks, and many of the things we do depend on chance. We live in an uncertain world, but using numbers, we can make some more sense of it. The mathematics of chance can help us to make better decisions in things from gambling, to shopping, to criminal justice.
With the spin of a roulette wheel, there's a 1 in 37 chance of the ball landing on any single number. If it lands on the number I chose, the casino will give me 35 times the money I put down. Sounds like a good deal, but the casino has done the maths to make sure, on average, it'll come out on top. Lost again. Games of chance have quite simple probabilities, so I can work out the chances of winning and place my bets accordingly. I know, for example, there's a 1 in 2 chance of getting ahead with a toss of a coin. I know there's a 1 in 6 chance of getting a 6 when I throw a dice. To get the ace of spades out of a pack of cards, well, there's a 1 in 52 chance of being able to do that. These are quite simple probabilities. But if I add just an extra little bit of complexity to the problem, then our intuition begins to break down. Although there's only a 1 in 13,983,816 chance of winning the jackpot, 94% of adults in the UK have played the National Lottery at some time. People have all sorts of methods for picking their numbers.
I use 2, basically because it's part of my home address, so it was years ago. It's been lucky for me. I've been fortunate.
I use the same numbers every week. These numbers are usually birthdays of my loved ones, my own house number, and just numbers I feel that will be lucky to me with the lottery.
Every time I've changed it to a different number, I've gone, say, maybe to 10, I get nothing, I get bad luck.
Well, I would base the system on my children's birthdays because I've got a very good connection to my children. I've got a very strong bond, emotional bond to them, and I would feel that they would bring me luck.
But once I use 4, that's part of my stepfather's railway number.
I'd pick my date of birth and my wife's date of birth and my daughter's date of birth. Those would be my lucky numbers.
9 occasionally, just depends on if I want to turn them round and put 29, which is his full badge number.
The truth is that any sequence of 6 numbers is equally likely to come up. The best option is to select a random combination of numbers which nobody else will have picked.
Could I have a lottery ticket, please?
This minimises your chances of having to share the jackpot if you do win. The best way to select a random selection of numbers is to let the machine do it for you. That's because people actually find it very hard to pick things out randomly.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We tend to assume that a random selection of numbers will be spread out equally. But in fact, randomness actually clumps things together. That's why buses always come in 3s. Calculating the probability of winning the National Lottery is quite straightforward. But there are other games of chance that even mathematicians find thoroughly confusing. In the 1990s, a problem from an American game show had mathematicians up in arms. It had a final round which went a little bit like this. I've got 3 doors here. Behind 2 of the doors, there are goats. Behind the 3rd door is a brand new sports car. The contestant got the chance to choose one of the doors. Let's say this one here. OK, there's a 1 in 3 chance that the car is behind this door. Straightforward up to now. But here comes the twist. The game show host, who knows where all the goats are, opens one of the other doors to reveal a goat. Now, the contestant gets offered the chance to either stick with their original choice or to change to the other door. What would you do?
Stick.
Stick. Stick.
OK, you can see that most people actually stick with their original choice. After all, it looks now that there might be a 50-50 chance that you chose the right door. Right? Wrong. Actually, you double your chances by moving to the other door. And here's why. When you first pick this door, there's a 1 in 3 chance that the car is behind this door. That means that there's a 2 in 3 chance that the car is behind the other 2 doors. Now, I'm going to open one of the other 2 doors and reveal a goat. But that doesn't change the probability that your first door was right. All it means is that the probability, 2 in 3, that the car was behind one of these 2 doors now shifts to the 1 door which hasn't been opened. So that means there's now a 2 in 3 chance that the car is behind this door, and still only a 1 in 3 chance that you were right at the beginning and the car was here. Now, don't worry if you didn't quite understand that. The same explanation was published in an American magazine, and 10,000 people wrote in, including several hundred mathematicians, saying that they didn't believe it. If you're still not convinced, here's another way to think about this problem. Suppose instead of 3 doors, I actually had 1,000,000 doors, and I, the game show host, open all the other doors except for the one you've chosen and one of the other doors. And now, what would you do? Understanding probability may not help you to always win at games of chance, but it certainly helps you to make good decisions in other aspects of your life. How do I decide which brand of washing up liquid to choose? Or what toothpaste? Or even which brand of cat food to feed my cat? Let's say I want my cat to have the best food on the market. I've seen an advert which says that 8 out of 10 cats prefer brand X, so I might be tempted to buy it. But what does 8 out of 10 actually mean? There are nearly 7 million cat owners in the whole of the UK. Surely the makers of brand X haven't asked all 7 million cats. They must have taken a sample. But how big does that sample need to be before I can be confident in their claim that really 8 out of 10 cats probably do prefer brand X? Let's say I want to be 95% confident in the accuracy of the research. That's the sort of standard level of scientific confidence that you have in most experiments. I'm also prepared to accept, say, a 5% error in their actual value. So how many cats would the company have to sample to make me happy? Surprisingly, the mathematics tells us that they only have to sample 384 cats to be confident in their claim that 8 out of 10 cats really do prefer brand X. 95 out of 100 ways of picking those cats will give me an answer which is only 5% away from the true percentage of cats which really do prefer brand X. Statistics can get pretty complicated pretty quickly, but you don't have to be a mathematician to prevent yourself being sucked in by wild statistical claims. Whether the research is about food, cosmetics or cancer, if you don't know the sample size, you don't know anything. It's not just in game shows and choosing your cat food that you need a good grasp of probabilities to help to make the best decisions. We're constantly assessing risks in everything we do in our lives. Is it safe to cross the road now? Should I give my kids the MMR jab? And what about this bird flu? Is it dangerous to eat chicken at the moment? Is it safer to drive to work or to take the train? Our intuitive guesses about such things are often wrong. Many people think that it's safer to drive to work than to take the train. But the numbers say something completely different. The number of people who've died in railway accidents since the trains started running in the UK over 180 years ago is probably about the same as die in car accidents each year. Once we've collected all the data, we can use the mathematics to help us to make better decisions. But interpreting that data is often not so straightforward, and sometimes even the smartest people can make mistakes. In 1999, Sally Clark was tried and wrongfully convicted of killing 2 of her children. A mathematical misunderstanding by a doctor and prosecution lawyers helped put her in prison. I met mathematician Philip David, who assisted with Sally's appeal. Philip, you've been involved in legal cases where statistics and probability have been misinterpreted with dire consequences.
Absolutely. I was actually involved in the first appeal of Sally Clark against her conviction. She was put on trial and convicted for murdering her 2 infant children. A very strong piece of evidence against her was a testimony in the original trial by an eminent paediatrician that the probability that both babies would die of natural causes in a family like hers was 1 in 73 million.
So how was that 1 in 73 million chance misinterpreted?
Everybody, judge, jury, press, misinterpreted according to what's known as the prosecutor's fallacy. And here's how it goes. We say there's a probability of 1 in 73 million that the babies died by innocent means. That's so tiny we can essentially neglect it. It means they must have died by some alternative means. The only alternative being offered was that Sally Clark murdered them, so there's a probability as near as you like to 1 that she was guilty. And that is a complete misinterpretation of the actual figure.
So although there's a 1 in 73 million chance that the babies died of natural causes, there's still a very small chance they were actually murdered as well.
There is a very, very small probability, and that has to be compared with the 1 in 73 million, which shows how dangerous it is to think that just because something has very small probability, therefore it didn't happen. And if we were to really believe that, then we'd believe that the case hasn't come to court, the children aren't dead, because the probability that both children are dead is actually very, very small.
Was the statistical evidence admissible in court?
We came to court here at the Royal Courts of Justice expecting to be called to testify orally about our evidence, but when leave was asked, it was refused by the court on the basis that it would only be argumentative, it's hardly rocket science, any old fool can do probability and statistics, and we don't need to listen to expert witnesses.
So the judge relied on the jury's common sense to assess the probabilities, but we can see that actually it's probably the worst thing to try and interpret things properly.
Well, it's very right that the legal system relies heavily on the common sense of the jury, but that does rely on the jury being able to exercise its common sense. And when you're dealing with problems of very tiny probabilities, that's a very difficult thing to do.
So we have to be very careful when we're assessing probability. Well, thank you very much, Philip. Okay, bye-bye. Another common misunderstanding in statistics is the confusion of correlation with causation. I was intrigued to see a survey recently which says that children who grow up in a house full of books actually do much better in school. That sounds pretty useful. Surely, if the mere presence of books in a house means that a child does better at school, we should ensure that children grow up in a house full of books. That's exactly what the Governor of Illinois decided to do in 2004. Each newborn child was bought a new book each month, so that by the time they reached 5, they'd have 60 books in their house. The project was very expensive, but the Governor of Illinois thought it was worth it. Whilst I admire the Governor's intentions, he's actually fallen into one of the classic mistakes in statistics. He's mistaken correlation for causation. Just because two things are related, that doesn't mean that one thing causes the other. Data shows that ice cream sales seem to be very related to shark attacks. The length of skirts seems to be correlated with the rise of the stock market. Whenever stocks go up, skirts get shorter. Whilst it's clear in these two cases that correlation does not mean causation, things are not always so obvious. Just another example where you have to be very careful in the way you interpret statistics.
I love the way the mathematics of probability leads to surprises, like the fact that a sample of a few hundred cats can actually tell you about millions of them. And if I get 6 heads in a row with a toss of a coin, the next toss is equally likely to be heads or tails. The mathematics of statistics and probability probably won't make you richer, but it might just make you a smarter consumer and make better decisions in general.